Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So we're continuing on with our discussion of the second Vilas of Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is all about Diksha, all about the ceremony of the ritual and the rules and regulations that the student has to follow, and that the guru and the things that the guru has to do, the teacher has to do, to initiate, to give Vaishnava initiation to the student. So last time there was a question, because we came to, I believe it's verse 187, where we encountered a Puranic version of Diksha, Vaishnava Diksha. And previously we had one system of Vaishnava Diksha, which we went through, including the fire ritual, the Homa sacrifice, and all the rules, 104 rules and regulations that the disciple is supposed to be following. And it was mentioned at the very beginning of that, in verse 34, I believe, and we can have a look at that. Back at the beginning, when we first started to build the mandapa, where the yagshala is going to be, that the very first Sanskrit word here is kriya vatyadi. Now the word adi means etc. So kriya vati adi, right? Kriya vati is one of the systems of initiation, and it's explained further on. Probably it's elaborated in the Digdarshini Tika by Sanatana Goswami, that these are the 4 types of initiation: Kriyavati, Kalavati, Varnamayi, and Vedamayi. So the question came last time, what are these other types? Now, Gopal Bhatta here and Sanatana Goswami, they've only first of all described Kriyavati, and they've explained it in one way. And then next at verse 186, they start talking about 186 and 187, they start talking about a Puranic version of this. But they don't seem to explain what the other types of initiation are: the Kalavati, the Varnamayi, and the Vedamayi. So what I thought we would do is, that is described in another book called Sharda Tilaka. Now, Sharda Tilaka is also a Tantra, it's an Agama, right? And it's not specifically a Vaishnava Agama, but it's an Agama, and it does deal with that in its 4th chapter. So I thought we would go through that, and that will give us more of an insight into the different types of initiation that are possible. So, unfortunately, I don't have this for the screen, so I'm just going to have to read to you. So, Sharda Tilaka. Just a bit of a background about Sharda Tilaka. It's mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas. It's quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas. It's a very general tantra, and it's divided into 25 chapters. And those 25 chapters are called patalas, right? So the first 2 or 3. It might be interesting sometime, if anybody's interested. Maybe we could go through the whole Sharda Tilaka. And do the first patala. It's very interesting, this book too, that somebody's translated. They put a warning in the book that there's yantras, mantras, and all sorts of things which are described here in this tantra, and the authors and editors, translators, printers, and publishers take no responsibility whatsoever for misuse of these mantras. So like, they take no responsibility if people use these things for nefarious means. Okay, so it comes right in the beginning of the book. So I thought that was very interesting. I like that. So I'll just explain a little bit about this. To understand agamic works, one shall be aware of the Sankhya philosophy in general. You have to be aware of Sankhya. So in Vaishnavism, we accept what Sankhya speaks about, tattvas in this material world, principles in this material world. And in general, the Sankhya system, there's two versions of Sankhya, and Sankhya was propounded by the sage Kapila, and there's some people consider there's two Kapilas also, but there's two types of Sankhya. There's the Nirishwara Sankhya, and there's the Ishwara Sankhya. So there's a type of Sankhya which admits that there is a God, and there's another type of Sankhya which doesn't admit that there's a God, which is an atheistic type Sankhya. And Sankhya basically means just counting or enumerating things. So all it is looking at the material world and just sort of categorizing things. So the very first thing with Sankhya is that it explains a little bit about the idea of how the material elements came, how the creation came about. So Vaishnavism, there are actually other systems of Indian philosophy too, which accept this idea in Sankhya of how the universe came about, how it was created. So maybe they don't accept exactly who created it. So some people say Shiva, some people say Vishnu, some people don't believe in God, but they do agree. They all agree on how this universe came about, how matter evolved. So, especially to know a little bit about Sharda Tilaka, at least the fundamental knowledge of Sankhya philosophy is very essential. Since in Sankhya philosophy there are 25 tattvas, so I think you've heard this before. Anybody who's been looking at the Mumukshapati class by Dr. Alwar that we have, which we just had one earlier prior to this class on Saturday mornings, when we're talking about the Astakshara mantra Om Namo Narayanaya, the syllable Om, the transcendental syllable Om, is made up of Akara, Ukara, and Makara, right? A, U, and M. So the letter M in the Sanskrit alphabet represents the jiva, represents the spirit soul, the individual soul. So there are 25 tattvas in Sankhya, right? And those tattvas are equated. They're usually designated by the different letters of the alphabet in Sanskrit. So in Sanskrit, we have a system where we have the vowels come first, then we have the consonants. So there are these 25 consonants in Sanskrit that start with ka and end with ma. So ka ka ga ga na cha 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 na cha 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 na ta 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 na pa 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 ma. Right? So ma is the last one. Is the 25th. So the 25th principle in Sankhya is ma, is designated by the word ma, or the letter ma. And the letter ma represents the jiva, the jivatman. So in Omkara, A-U-M, so in books like Sarada Tilaka and other tantras and things like that, and even Hari Bhakti Vilasa, we're going to find that each and every syllable, each and every letter of a mantra means something and has some very, very deep meaning and are combined in certain ways. So these are the esoteric inner meanings of mantras that are taught by the guru, by the teacher to the disciple. So when we have this Vaishnava Diksha, getting it back to Diksha and Vaishnava initiation, the guru has to be expert in Tantra. He has to be expert in Agamas. And therefore, he has to also know very deeply the meaning of not only the words not only the mantra in general. So somebody gives you a mantra and says, this mantra means this. So anybody can tell you this mantra means this. They can just, not anybody, but anybody who knows Sanskrit can say this mantra means obeisance to Lord Narayana, or this means, oh Hare, oh Krishna, oh Hare, oh Rama, like that. But what is the esoteric meaning? We can find even with the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, some people say that Hare means oh Hara. Oh Hara meaning oh Radha, meaning the energy of the Lord. Hara means the energy of the Lord. But it could also mean, Hare could also mean oh Hari, oh Lord Hari. Hari is also, because in Sanskrit, the vocative of Hari is Hare, the vocative of Hara is also Hare. So there's an ambiguous meaning there. And also, so the guru has to know all the meanings, has to know all the meanings, not just the literal meaning of the word, but the inner meaning of the word and the inner meaning of even the syllables in the word. So, and that should be, of course, maybe not every meaning, every esoteric meaning is given by the guru at the time of initiation, but after initiation, usually he's trying to teach. He will try to teach more of the inner meaning of the word, the inner meaning of the mantra, to the shishya. So anyway, in order to understand all these things, all these inner meanings, some understanding of Sankhya is there. So so since Sankhya, Sankhya philosophy, these are 25 tattvas, or 25 principles, which symbolize the same. Sharada Tilaka has been classified into 25 patalas. Okay, so Sharada Tilaka was written, and it was written in 25 chapters, and the 25 chapters signify or symbolize, right, the 25 tattvas of Sankhya, the 25 tattvas of Sankhya, right? So so anyway, that's the whole idea of there being 25 chapters in Sharada Tilaka. So if we're going to understand a little bit more about Sharada Tilaka, why we're going to Sharada Tilaka is because we want to understand these 4 types of initiation, which are spoken of in the second Vilasa of Hari Bhakti Vilas. Because really only one type seems to be practiced nowadays by Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but we'll see. So the 25 tattvas of Sankhya philosophy are classified like this. There are Purusha, Prakriti, Mahat, Ahankar, right? Then we have, and Purusha means the Supreme Lord. Prakriti means the material energy. Mahat is a conglomerated material energy. Ahankar is false ego. And then we have 5 tanmatras, 5 gyanendriyas, and 5 kamendriyas, right? So tanmatras are a little difficult to explain, but the gyanendriyas are knowledge acquiring senses, and the kamendriyas are the working senses, right? And manas means the mind, right? So out of the 5 tanmatras, right, we have Prithvi, Prakriti is Sabda Brahman, and Kundalini Shakti, and Shakarada Sharini, right, Maya or avidya, meaning ignorance, right? Then we have Mahat is equated with, in the Tanmatras, Mahat is equated with intelligence, Ahankar is equated with egoness, Sabda Tanmatra is sound or spatiality, Sparsha Tanmatra is touch or vitality, Rupa Tanmatra is form or luminosity, Rasa Tanmatra is taste or fluidity, Chanda Tanmatra is shell or solidity. Then we have, again, we're going to the knowledge acquiring senses, Twak, Chaksu, Jihva, Grana, Srotra, Vak, which are skin, eyes, tongue, nose, ears, words, right? Then we have the working senses, right? Pada, Pani, Paya, Upasta, and Manas, right? I'm sorry, that was Vakpada, Pani, Paya, Upasta, right? Means words, movement organs, the feet, right? Pani, the hands, taking. Paya means the organ of excretion, right? Upasta, enjoyment, the genitals, right? And then we have mind, manas, at the end. And then we have the five elements. If we add on the 5 elements, right? Earth, that's Prithvi, Apa, Teja, Vayu, and Akasha, which means earth, water, fire, air, and sky or ether, right? So if we add those things, we have 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, that's 20, plus 1, is 21, plus Prakriti, Manas, and Ahankar is 24, plus the Purusha, the Supreme Person, which is 25. So actually the 25th element is not the Supreme, but is the individual jiva, right? So it's represented by the letter M in the Sanskrit alphabet. As I went through the different the alphabet, the jiva, the individual jiva, is represented by the letter M. Thus, on the basis of the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is, as I said, accepted by other philosophies in India, including Vaishnavism, right? Which is the system that the material world was made, but not necessarily the person who made it, which might differ amongst different sects in India. The Shaivites think is Shiva is the origin, the Vaishnavas accept Vishnu as the supreme, as the origin. So on the basis of Sankhya system of philosophy, first 24 patalas have been dependent upon Mula Prakriti. The last 25th patala is to explain the unification of Prakriti and Purusha, that is yoga, right? The root meaning of yoga is yuj, to join, to unite or join. Thus yoga is the matter of the 25th patala. So what we're explaining here is just the introduction, the understanding of what the whole work Sharda Tilaka is about, and it's quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas, and we specifically want to take the fourth patala, the fourth chapter of it today, and we want to look at it. But some other time, if we want to go through the whole book, it's very interesting. It is a tantra, but it's not specifically a Vaishnava tantra, but it's a general tantra. So, okay, so I don't think we need to go through every, the full introduction. Just that was just an introduction to Sharda Tilaka, but each I'll just read the summary of the fourth chapter, and then we'll go straight to the fourth chapter and explain about those four types of initiation, right? In the fourth patala, or the fourth chapter of Sharda Tilaka, the classification of Diksha into four categories: Kriyavati, Varnamayi, Kalavati, and Vedavati, right, has been done, and the identity. So he says here, this translator says that also Advaita philosophy is explained a little bit there too. Okay, we'll see. So it's mentioned here that Advaita philosophy is described also in the fourth chapter, right? So now, Advaita means Advaita is not objected to by any form of Vaishnavism except for Dvaita. The Dvaita Vedantins, the Madhvas, they are specifically against Advaita. But all other forms of Vaishnavism, Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Vallabha Vaishnavism, Sri Vaishnavism, whatever it is, right, Nimbarka Vaishnavism, all have an element of Advaita in them. We are the individual soul and the supreme soul are separate. Of course, they're separate, but they have certain things in common. Just like a little spark has heat and light, but very little has heat and light, just like a big fire does. So there are some aspects of Advaita in all the different forms of Vedanta, all the different schools of Vedanta, all the different schools of Vaishnavism. Madhva may be a little bit less or a lot less in Madhva school. So anyway, that's just something about Advaita. Okay, so we'll go straight to the fourth chapter, and we'll talk about initiation, right? And then when we finish this, maybe we can go back to Hari Bhakti Vilasa, and if we have time, we can continue with the second form of initiation, which is described in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, because we already described the first type. The second type, which is a Puranic version of that, it's still Kriyavati, the Kriyavati type of initiation. So the initiation or Diksha will be described without which the goal of the mantras cannot be achieved. Okay, so the very first sloka here of Sharda Tilaka, and if anybody wants the Sanskrit to quote to people. The very first sloka says that without initiation, without the actual formal initiation or the instruction by the guru, by the teacher, the goal of the mantra, whatever the goal of the mantra is, the goal of the mantra that is received will not actually be achieved. Now, okay, there's some people dispute this. So we have that story of Ekalavya in the Mahabharata. There's a story of one boy who he wanted to become an archer. But Dronacharya was a Brahmin, actually, who taught martial arts. And this boy, I guess, was not a Brahmin or a Kshatriya. He was not a Kshatriya by birth. And he wanted to learn from Dronacharya, but somehow or other he couldn't learn directly from Dronacharya. So what he did was he simply watched him from afar. He simply watched the practice of archery, and he practiced himself. So he didn't really have a direct relationship with the guru. And so he learned, and he became very good at doing what he was doing. So some people will say, well, look at that example of Ekalavya, even though at the end, Dronacharya asked him to give him Guru Dakshina by cutting off his thumb, so he couldn't actually be an archer anymore. The point of the story is to try to understand that you can actually achieve some proficiency. You can achieve some proficiency in mantra shastra without having an actual regular guru or physical guru or present guru. But here in Sharada Tilaka and in Hari Bhakti Vilasa also, it's saying that there is a necessity for having a direct relationship with the guru. And we know this because of so much emphasis in the first Vilas of Hari Bhakti Vilasa of mutual testing of the guru and the disciple, right? The teacher and the student have to test each other to find out whether the guru is qualified or whether the shishya is qualified, whether the teacher is qualified, whether the student is qualified. So you will see that mostly people will say this. They'll say you can't actually achieve the goal of the mantra without having the proper initiation, right? And the proper initiation means you have to have a direct guru, and you have to have go through all the formalities. We'll see later in Hari Bhakti Vilasa how the formalities can be less, because we saw before the system of initiation was very, very complicated. And so people naturally, when they hear that, when they read that first in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, they think, oh, well, my initiation wasn't like that, or some guru is doing initiation, but it's not as complicated as this in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. So is that proper or not proper, like that? No, that's proper also. That type of initiation is also proper. Very simple initiation is also proper. But remember what I said about in Hari Bhakti Vilasa is the system of teaching a subject. If you want to teach a subject fully, what you do is you teach the most elaborate form of the ritual, the most elaborate rules and regulations first. And then you say, okay, but what is the essence of that? What is not necessary in certain circumstances? So there might be certain circumstances where we have to shorten things. So what is the essence? What's the last thing that we have to do? Like that. Just like in this particular place in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, it says the guru should ask the shishya to follow 104 rules. And if he doesn't do that, he can't be initiated. So that's what it says in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. But then later on, we understand that the essence of that is that there may be a few rules which are actually most important, and that sometimes the guru won't ask everybody to follow all the 104 rules, but maybe he'll just say, okay, there's 4 rules, or there's a few rules that you have to follow. So, okay, so getting back to the 4th patala of Sharada Tilaka, explaining about these 4 different types of initiation. He's basically saying, the first verse is he's saying that he's trying to encourage everybody to take the proper formal initiation directly from a guru. And the way the author of Sharda Tilaka is saying this is he's saying basically without that you can't actually achieve the goal of the chanting of the mantras or the use of the mantras. So, but I would say it is possible to get some proficiency in mantra shastra even just on your own by studying mantra shastra. Right? No, I'm not suggesting that people should try to do any of these things. Just like I said in this book, they've in the beginning of this book they say the publishers and the author and the printers are not responsible for any misuse of the mantras in this book. There's a warning on this book. Okay. So then, since it is the illuminer of knowledge, the destroyer of sins, it is called Diksha by Tantric scholars. Okay, so that is the second verse here. The second verse here, and we can give you the Sanskrit if you want it, explains the actual meaning of the word Diksha. Diksha. So Diyate Muktiranaya, Kshiyate Papanasanam, Diyate Kshiyate Tasmad Diksha Itate, whatever. There's a sloka in Pancharatra that says something is given, Muktiranaya, liberation is given, and Diyate Muktiranaya, Kshiyate Papanasanam. Papanasanam means the sin is destroyed, or the reaction to the sinful activities of the student are destroyed. And the process by which liberation is given and sin is destroyed is called Diksha. That's the definition of Diksha. Okay. So another definition of Diksha comes in Hari Bhakti Vilasa also, and is used also in Bhakti Sandarbha, verse 286 by Jiva Goswami, and it is Divya Jnanam Yato Dadyat Kura Papasya Sangsayam Tasmat Dikshati Saprokta Deshikais Tatvako Vidai. Deshikais Tatvako Vidai. Deshika. A Deshika is a qualified person, a person who's knowledgeable in the scriptures. That person, people who are qualified in the scriptures, all of them, will tell you, according to this verse, that Divya Jnanam Yato Dadyat, what is given to a person, to a student by the teacher in Diksha is divine knowledge. Divine knowledge is given. That is, divine knowledge is given to the student from the teacher. Teaches divine knowledge to the student. Divya Jnana means divine knowledge. Yato Dadyat. Dadyat means to give. Divya Jnana Yato Dadyat. Kuryat. Papasya Sankshayam. Sankshayam means destroyed. Right? Sankhya means destroyed. So papasya or sin is destroyed. And sin is destroyed. Sin is destroyed how? By the process of giving the divine knowledge, the sin is destroyed. Right? So like for instance, if I tell you, it's a very simple thing. For instance, I tell you that fire burns. So I give you a principle here. Fire burns. So if I tell you fire burns, then you won't put your hand in a fire. Right? If you really understand that principle that I give you, you won't put your hand in a fire because you realize if you put your hand in the fire, your hand will be burnt. And you don't want your hand to be burnt, so you don't put your hand in the fire. Right? So simply by hearing from the parent, the child understands, an intelligent, first-class intelligent child will understand, don't put your hand in the fire. Because what? My father, my mother told me that fire burns. Fire will burn you, so don't touch it. Right? We tell our kids all the time. So, okay, so this is the whole idea. So the divine knowledge that is given to the disciple or the student at the time of Diksha is the thing which actually stops the sin. Now the sin should stop after Diksha. The sins should stop. Just like, and Srila Prabhupada used to explain about this. He used to give the example of an overhead fan. So let's say in India there's a lot of fans because it's a hot country. You have a fan. So when you go into the room, you flip the switch and you turn the fan on because you're going to be sitting there and you don't want to sweat and it's hot. When you leave the room, you flick off the switch of the fan. The fan doesn't immediately stop, but it continues to rotate. And it gets slower and slower and slower. And finally, within a minute or so, it stops. So this is like the sin of the student. The sin of the student may continue even, but at a certain point, somebody has flicked the switch So the idea is diksha is that flicking of the switch. When you flick the switch, then the sin stops. It slowly stops like that. Everything stops, right? So finally at the end of life, or at the end of how many lives or whatever it is, the sin will stop. even the reaction to the sins will eventually stop. And then at that time, when we're totally sinless, of course, there's nothing stopping us from being liberated or from going back to Godhead. So here he's giving in the second verse, he's just giving the definition of diksha from the scriptures. Now, Jiva Goswami also mentions that what is that divine knowledge? That divine knowledge which is given in diksha, that is the Gopal mantra. The Gopal mantra is the divine knowledge in the form of a pill. So just like we have a medicine, and a medicine might come in a small capsule. So the Gopal mantra, or any initiation mantra, the initiation mantra which the guru is giving, encapsulates all the knowledge that the student needs to destroy his sin and to reach the goal, which is eternal service to the Lord in Goloka, or Vaikuntha, and which is liberation. But the Vaishnava idea of liberation, is not just sitting in some place enjoying, but it's active service to the Supreme Lord in the eternal realm. Okay, so that is there within the mantra. Now, how we get the knowledge, all the knowledge that we need from the mantra, like we were describing, each syllable has a meaning, and there are esoteric meanings for the words and the syllables and the sounds in the mantra, and that can be explained externally by the guru, or by meditation. It can be understood from within the heart by Krishna, by the Chaitya Guru, right? Can give us that realization also by the practice of the mantra, like that. So there's also another practice which is mentioned also in Hari Bhakti Vilasa chapter 17, that after initiation one should perform Purischarya. Purischarya means you've got the mantra from the guru's explained to you how to use it. You're using it in your deity worship rituals, you're using it for meditation, you're thinking in meditation not only of the mantra itself, but the meaning of the mantra and the esoteric, deeper meanings behind the mantra, the deity of the mantra in a certain form, right? Which is when we do japa, there's a dhyana mantra that we chant before, so that we think of the particular form of the deity which we're worshiping with that mantra. So after taking initiation, the student is not perfect in the mantra. He doesn't have the mantra siddhi. He hasn't perfected the mantra. He's not chanting purely. So what he wants to do is he wants to purify his chanting. So there's a system in Hari Bhakti Vilasa 17 called Purischarana or Purischarya, whereby one perfects the mantra. One learns to perfect the mantra. So we'll come across that when we come to chapter 17 of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. So anyway, getting back to that. So here is just simply given the definition of diksha. Now we come to the third verse. The four kinds of diksha are Kriyavati, Varnamayi, he says Kalatma here, but in Hari Bhakti Vilasa it was written Kalavati, and Vedamayi. So the four kinds of diksha are to be described in order. So here in the fourth chapter of Sharda Tilaka, the author is going to describe these four different types of diksha in order. So the first one he's going to describe is the Kriyavati. So we already discussed a form of Kriyavati diksha in our previous, in the first 186 verses of the second chapter of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, right? Because we've come to 187, verse 187, where the Puranic version starts. So we have understood one system of Kriyavati already. So this will be a second system, according to Sharda Tilaka, that is explained. So, continuing on, the Yajamana shall take a bath according to the agamic instructions, and after finishing his mourning, before noon duties, shall enter the yaga mandapa, being well dressed and silent. So here the yajamana seems to be the person who's the student who's taking initiation. Or it might be the guru. Let's see. The Deshikendra. Deshikendra means the person who's qualified. Okay, so I'm not sure here. Let's continue on. Okay, so anyhow, he does his morning duties. He gets up. He does his puja. He does his Sandhya Vandanam, whatever it is, his chanting of Gayatri mantra, and then he takes bath, wears proper clothes, tilak, everything, and he enters the Yaga Mandapa. Now, in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, it was also described, the Yaga Mandapa was described in detail. Here, he's probably not going to, he may describe in detail or may not describe in detail the Yaga Mandapa. Okay. So, the place where the sacrifice is going to happen. He has to do Achamana. Okay, so there's different forms of Achamana, which we'll find out in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. There's a few different types of Achamana which are described in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. So next, Samanya Argya. Samanya means regular or normal. Argya is water which is offered to a guest, or water which is used to wash the hands, or sometimes just sprinkled over the head. Will be explained. Okay, so next Samanya Argya. Then sprinkling of water on the dwara, the door, with the Astra mantra. Then he shall perform dwara puja. Okay, so when he enters the Yaga Mandapa, right, before he enters the Yaga Mandapa, you enter in the what we discussed about the Yaga Mandapa is made up, it's got 4 doors. So in the north, south, east, and west. There are different deities to be worshipped at each door, and there's a procedure for entering the door. Okay? So in order to come in, first of all, he has to worship the deities at the door. So Vigyana and Mahalakshmi shall be worshipped on the upper threshold of the door. On the right of the door, and probably this is the eastern door, which he's going to be entering, on the right of the door, Vigyana and Kshetresha shall be worshipped. Right. So all of these deities have their places. On the other parts of the door frame, Ganga and Yamuna shall be worshipped with flowers and water. Right. Yeah, so normally this is Panchupachara, 5 items that are offered to these deities, or sometimes even Sadasupachara, 16 items of worship. In all cases, he mentioned in the beginning here to sprinkle the water, first sprinkle the water with the Astra mantra. Now, we discussed the Astra mantra before. Astra mantra is usually Om Astraya Pat. Om Astraya Pat. Right? It could also be Mahastraya Pat. It could also be some other Bij mantra before, but the Astra mantra will have the word Astra, Astraya, Astra in the dative case, and it will usually end in the mystic syllable Pat, P-H-A-T. Okay. So Ganga and Yamuna on the different parts of the door frame. In all cases, the doors of the doors, Astra Puja has to be done. So Astra Puja meaning here we have to sprinkle with the Astra mantra. So here in brackets, which means probably not, it doesn't come in the original Sanskrit, or we could look it up, right? He says the Astra Puja involves this mantra, Om Chaha Astraya Pat Namaha. So I'm not sure if he's saying that is the mantra which is actually given, or it might be given in a commentary on Sarada Tilaka. But anyway, like I said, the usual mantra is Om Astraya Pat. It says then Deshika Indra. Deshika means a qualified person. Indra means the king of qualified persons, or the head qualified person. And in brackets he puts Yajamana. So it seems like when he says Yajamana here, he's in talking about the guru or the teacher. Shall avoid the celestial obstacles and atmospheric obstacles by super knowledge. I'm not sure exactly what that is a translation of. And Astra water, respectively. So we have to take the water, this sacred water, and we have to sprinkle it to remove certain celestial obstacles and atmospheric obstacles. So then he says by 3, the English is not the perfect here. So we probably need to go to the Sanskrit if we want to be exactly correct about what the procedure is. He says by striking 3 heel strikes. 3 heel strikes means striking the ground with your heel of your foot 3 times, right? Upon the ground, all types of obstacles shall be avoided. Touching the lintel, I think it is, of the left threshold. Touching a little, the left threshold, the Yajamana shall cross the door, putting his right leg and abridging his body. Okay, so this is important even for pujaris, even people who are going into the deity room, right? The correct agamic method of going into a garbhagriha or a yagashala is that there's a gate, there's a doorway. You touch with your left hand the left side of the doorway. You hunch your body down a little bit, right? You don't stand fully uptight, and you enter with your left foot. Right foot, right, like they said here, right? Touch the left, and then put your right foot forward. In English, we have that saying: put your right foot forward, put your best foot forward. The right is usually considered to be the best because most people are right-handed, and also in India, going to the right is pradakshina. We always do things auspicious. We go to the right. The right is the auspicious side for the man. For the ladies, it's the left, but the right is the auspicious side. Also, we have for instance, in Latin language, they have the word for left is sinister. So we get that it comes into English that sinister is actually not a very good thing, but it actually just means left. So left in Vedic civilization, the left side, except for women, but for men, the left side is not considered to be auspicious, and that has many reasons why we use the left hand in the bathroom for for cleaning dirty things, and so it just happens to be like that. So we consider the left to be not so clean. So anyway, here we have, that's why we put the foot, whenever we go into the deity room, we should put the right foot forward. Some people do this when they go to temples even. Like if I'm going to the temple and there's a threshold in the temple, there's a like a speed bump before you get into the temple. And when you go over the step there's a step to step over when you enter the temple door. You want to put your right foot first over that step. Some people don't bother about it, but other people, when they're meditating upon how to enter in a proper way, they put their right foot forward. Okay, so so abridging the body. The southwest corner of the Yaga Mandapa, Vastu Isha, the Vastu Purusha and Brahman shall be worshipped, Brahman meaning Chaturmukha Brahma, right? Shall be worshipped by Panchagavya and Arghya water. Okay, so Panchagavya are the 5 products of the cow, right? Cow dung, cow urine, milk, yogurt, ghee, right? And so we have to, in some way, sprinkle that area in the southwest corner of the Yagshala, right? With those things. This purification shall be done up to the crossway by Mula Mantra and sprinkling of grass. And it says Shara grass. Okay, so normally we would sprinkle using a Mula Mantra. The Mula Mantra hasn't been spoken of here. We don't really know in Sharada Tilaka up till now what the Mula Mantra is. But since the person is the guru, the guru will know those things. The guru will know those things. So, by the same Mula Mantra, striking by Darbha grass and by Kavacha Mantra, right? The Kavacha Mantra is Kavachaya Hum. Kavachaya Hum is the Kavacha Mantra, right? Abhyukshana, which is a type of sprinkling. We don't have time today, but maybe sometime we can go into different types of sprinkling. There's different ways to sprinkle with water. You can sprinkle like this. You can sprinkle like that, with your hand held up or your hand held down, or there's different methods of sprinkling. So abhukshana is one method of sprinkling. The definitions of prokshana, excuse me, he says here, definitions of prokshana and abhukshana will be explained further. He shall perfume the yaga mandapa by sandal and by camphor pieces and by some other fragrances, right? So a lot of times you'll find this, that they take sandalwood powder, or aguru, or sambrani. In South India, it's called sambrani, which is the sap of certain trees, and camphor, and they put it on hot coals, and this is incense, a type of incense or frankincense, and they take it around and they make the yagashala fragrant. So muttering the Astra mantra for 7 times, right? Vikira shall be scattered. Now Vikira here, we can look up what Vikira means, but it probably means sesame seed, black sesame, yeah, or otherwise known in India as till seeds. So it's usually sprinkled around, right? This is Vikira. No, here he's going to explain what Vikira is. Oh, there you go. Okay. So I'm sorry. Vikira means a mixture of laja. Now, laja means puffed rice, right? Here he calls laja wetted grain. Laja is puffed rice, right? Chandan, sandal powder. Sinanta, white mustard seeds. Bhasma, ashes. Durva, which he calls bont grass, which is a type of short grass which Ganapati likes, right? Kusha grass, which is also sometimes called durva, right? But he's making a distinction here between, he's saying the durva is a type of bont grass, right? Okay, so kusha grass and akshata. Akshata is, of course, rice, which has been husked. So not full paddy. Paddy rice has got the husk on it, but akshata is without the husk. Okay. So apparently this mixture of vikara is to be sprinkled around the yagshala. Yeah. So vikaras were called the destroyer of obstacles of all kinds. After a few minutes, the vikara shall be cleansed by a handful of kusha grass by the Astra mantra. Okay. All right. So what we're talking about here is we sprinkle this all around the yagshala to purify the yagshala, this mixture. So we've made a big mess. So we want to clean up that mess. So then we get a kusha grass broom, a broom made of kusha grass, and we sweep up what we just threw down to purify the place. We sweep that all up and we can throw that away. Okay? So by the touch of the vikara, the yagashala is becoming purified. And then by the broom, the kusha grass broom, we're cleaning it up. Now, a lot of people don't go to this full trouble when they're establishing a yagashala. They simply put down cow dung and they paste cow dung down, wet cow dung and mud mixed, and they let it dry, and that's sufficient. Or they sprinkle it with prokshana, with punyahavachana mantra water. Okay, so while you're sweeping with the kusha grass broom, you are chanting the Astra mantra, Om Astrayapat, Om Astrayapat, Om Astrayapat, like that. And you, according to Sharada Tilaka. Okay, so a place shall be reserved for Vardhani Kalasha. So there's a Kalasha or a kumbha or a pot, which is put in the northeast direction, right? In between north and east, the northeast direction, the northeast corner, there's a place for this Kalasha. Then Brahmins shall say that the time is good for the ceremony, for which they shall be purified by remuneration, by dakshina. Okay, so then you've called some Brahmins who are expert at Jyotish, at the system of Muhurta, and they will tell the Yajamana, the guru, who is going to perform the initiation, when the proper time to perform the initiation is. And then for giving the guru that specific knowledge and explaining to him the panchangam, the different parts of that that time, not just telling him, you know, look at your this is the time, but telling him the day, the tithi, the vara, the nakshatra, the karna, and the yoga, right? Telling him all these 5 things, right? Then the acharya, and he, you know, he may know it himself. He may know how to calculate the proper muhurta himself. But in this case, it says he should call a person who's really expert in that, and he should ask that person. That person will explain those things to him, and then he will know when to do the actual ceremony. And he has to give that person some dakshina. The guru has to give dakshina to this Brahmin or Brahmins who has told him the exact time, best time to do the initiation. This is very, very complicated sort of situation here. I mean, you know, we're getting a lot of detail here. So, yeah, if anybody has any questions at any time, you can just unmute and just let me know. Okay, so one of the said mandalas shall be designed on the sacrificial altar or Vedika. Now, a Vedika is normally at least has to be one brick high. We get bricks and we make a square area and on which to put a mandala or on which to put to worship the Navagrahas, the 9 planets, or on which to worship the yoginis or the matrikas, right? Or on which we are going to place different pots, you know, to be worshipped, maybe for doing bathing of the shishya later on. So we make this Vedi, right? This Vedic, and it says we're going to put a mandala on that. So probably he's going to use here the Sarvatobhadra mandala, which is one of the Sarvatobhadra mandalas, which is very, very common, the Sarvatobhadra mandala, which means all auspicious mandala. In Hari Bhakti Vilasa, we saw that they suggested also a type of a Sarvatobhadra mandala, but there are different forms of Sarvatobhadra mandala, and they had a specific one involving lotus petals and circles and things like that, which was described before. So here, he's talking about having a Vedika, and it can be high also. It doesn't have to be only 1 brick high, but it can be, you know, it can be quite high. A lot of times in a yagashala, you make a brick platform, which is quite high, but maybe, you know, maybe half a meter across or 1.5 feet across, and square, and it might be you know, 1 meter off the ground or 1.5 meters off the ground, so that you don't have to actually sit down to do the worship, but you can do the worship standing up. And that way you can get things done quicker because you can walk around from different parts of the yagshala. Because we all know that when we have a yagshala, we have to do worship of all the aspects of the yagshala twice a day. If there are 2 sessions a day, each session before we start, we have to do the yaga puja, the yaga mandapa puja. Okay, so anyway, getting back to this. So the mantri, the person who's going to be chanting all the different mantras, shall take his place on a soft seat, falling in facing to the east or to the north. So this is very common, obviously. The person who's going to be chanting most of the mantras, and again, you know, mostly this is the acharya himself, or he's got some assistant priest, some ritvik, who is helping him also, another qualified priest who's helping him in the ceremony, and maybe chanting certain mantras and things like that. So that whoever it is, probably the main priest, is going to be sitting facing east or north, which is the 2 first auspicious directions. Having a control of all sense organs, sitting in Padmasana. Padmasana means full lotus position, right? Now some texts, they don't mention whether he should be sitting in Padmasana, Swastikasana, or in Sukhasana. This Sukhasana is when you sit down, you're very, very easy. Swastikasana, one foot is on, one leg is on top of the other leg. Padmasana is the full lotus. Okay, so here it's specifically mentioned Padmasana. And being silent, shall keep the puja items on his right side. Okay, so keep the puja items on your right side. Again, why do we keep puja items mostly on our right side? It's because we're going to reach for those things with our right hand, because the right hand is auspicious, right? So first, he shall keep the water pot filled with perfumed water. Perfumed water we discussed also in Hari Bhakti Vilas. There's a list of different ingredients, and they can vary, right? But it's called astagandha. Astagandha means 8 different fragrant items of different spices like mace and allspice and cloves and cardamom and some green camphor, edible camphor, and saffron, and we mix all these things together and we put those in the water of the kumbhas, in the pot, right? So here it said, he shall keep a water pot filled with perfumed water besides another pot for washing his hands. So okay, so he has one pot with just ordinary water where he can wash his hands, and he should probably have another bowl to wash his hands over, because it's a messy sort of ritual, and maybe he has to wash his hands sometimes, so he has to have the ability to wash his hands and maybe even dry his hands. So paper towels are always good, right, because they can be used and discarded, right? And then he also has this other perfume pot water, which is probably the water from the Punya Vachanam that he performed. It doesn't say here yet, but probably there's going to be some Ganesh Puja and Punya Vachanam performed, or maybe that's already happened already. So ghee lamps shall be illuminated on all sides. So that just means that there should be lighting. Of course, we have electric lighting nowadays, but you could also have standing ghee lamps around the Yagshala, giving us light, more auspicious light coming from standing lamps than coming from the electric lights. Okay, so the Deshika shall take a mirror. Now, a mirror can be actually a glass mirror, or it could be some burnished metal mirror. There's a special, there's one particular famous village in Kerala where they specialize in shining metal so much that it becomes like a mirror, and you can actually see your face in it, metal mirrors. So the metal mirrors are also available, probably more auspicious than the glass mirrors, but anyway, he keeps a mirror. He has to have a mirror. What does he have? He shall keep Deshika. The Deshika means the main priest or the guru should keep a mirror. A chamara. Chamara means a yak tail whisk, which is usually used to keep flies and insects off a person, right? A chatra, an umbrella, right? A tala vritna. A tala vrintna. A tala vrintna is a special type of palm leaf from South India, which is made into a fan. So a palm leaf fan, which is very good for fanning yourself when it's hot, or also for fanning the fire, the sacrificial fire, to get to blaze it, to get the flames to come up, inflame it. And different design plates. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but it could be that he has certain plates and patras and things like that for keeping the samagris, the different items for the sacrifice on. Okay. Then, having done the hollow of the hands by both hands, so that either means Anjali Mudra or it means Sankalpa Mudra, right? Sankalpa Mudra, where we put the two hands together, crossed over onto the right knee, or Anjali Mudra, where he holds the hands in front of, like a lotus flower, in front of the heart, right? He should do namaskara to Guru. So first of all, in beginning, obviously, we have to do namaskara to our Guru, Asmat Guru Pyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Guru Pyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Guru Pyo Namaha. We have to salute the Guru. And there may be other, as we discussed some other time, maybe, there are other mantras also to chant to the Guru, maybe his Taniyans or his Pranam mantras. And in this way, we can salute the whole Guru Parampara that we're coming in. So this is very important also in the beginning of Diksha. When the Guru is going to give Diksha to somebody else, he has to also remember his lineage, before he transmits the lineage or connects the student to the lineage, he has to explain the lineage to the student, and he has to also pray for the ability to connect the student to the lineage, to his lineage. So he has to pray to the masters that have come before him. So that's very important that he does namaskaram to them before he starts, right? And then second, it says he should pray to Ganesha, right? So this is very common. Even we see in Krishna Jamma Titi Vidi by Rupa Goswami, he first of all starts out with a prayer to Ganesha, Ganananam Tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Nidinan Tva Nidipatigum Havamahe, which is the strictly Yajurveda version. Or the Krishna Yajurveda version would be Ganananam Tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavim Kavinam, etc. So we know those mantras. And if we don't know the Vedic mantras, we can also use some simple mantras like Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chajobhajam Prasannavaranam Dhyayet Sarvigno Pashantaye, which is a very common mantra, which is considered to be a Ganapati Dhyanam by most smartas and things. And also, of course, Vaishnava is considered to be like a high Griva Pranama. But anyway, so some prayer to Ganesh. So he does namaskaram to the Guru, then namaskaram to Ganesh, right? Here it's because it's not specifically a Vaishnava Pancharatra Agama or Vaikanasa Agama. Vishvaksena is not mentioned here, but in Hari Bhakti Vilas, we can note that at this point, Vishvaksena, I think it was mentioned that Vishvaksena and Ganesh both can be prayed to. And why do we pray to Ganesh or Vishvaksena? Is to clear obstacles in the beginning of the ritual, or for the whole ritual. And then he should perform. But anyway, we get the idea. We know all these steps individually. But here, what's important to understand is the sequence of steps, right? So first of all, the Guru, then Ganesha or Vishvaksena or both. And then the next thing to do is to do the Bhuta Shuddhi. The Bhuta Shuddhi is also called by Smartas Hangarupasana. And what it means is, it means that we have to have a divine body in order to perform the worship. So if we're a pujari, or if we're a sadhaka, or if we're doing some ritual like this guru, this teacher here is doing this initiation, then he first of all has to do it in a pure body. So of course he takes bath, he does his sanyavandanam, he puts tilak, he puts proper dress, a clean dress on. But he also has to do this mentally. And mentally, what you're doing in Bhuta Shuddhi is Bhuta. The word Bhuta here means the Pancha Mahabhutas. It means earth, water, fire, air, ether. It means the different elements that we just talked about before. In Sankhya, there are these different elements, the 25 elements there of Sankhya. So the senses and the tanmatras and all these different things, right, all have to be purified, and the method of purification for them is a type of meditation called Bhuta Shuddhi. So we've been through this before in Hari Bhakti Vilas. The system of Bhuta Shuddhi is explained later on probably in the 5th Vilas, right before we start to do the actual worship of the deity during the day, and before Homa, before Japa, before Homa, before Japa, before teaching Shastra, before giving initiation, before all of these activities, Bhuta Shuddhi has to be done. So even if it's just a simple Bhuta Shuddhi, thinking Naham Vipro Nacha Narapati Napi Vaishona Sudro Naham Bani Nachagirpati, even if just thinking this, that I'm not a Brahman Kshatriya Vaishya, I'm simply a servant of the gopis, if I'm just a servant of the Supreme Lord. Even if we just think like that, we become purified enough to perform the ceremony. So we're trying to purify ourselves ritually as well as purifying ourselves physically first. So here the Bhuta Shuddhi is gone through, and we can have a separate class about Bhuta Shuddhi again, but I've given out anybody who wants the Bhuta Shuddhi information on how to do Bhuta Shuddhi according to Sri Vaishnavism or according to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, or even some other form of Bhuta Shuddhi, they can just let me know and we can get it to you, no problem. So Bhuta Shuddhi is very important. So that's the next thing. So having done the Kara Shuddhi, Three claps are to be done. Okay, so this is very common also when we're waking the deity. We do 3 claps. First of all, we have to do the karashuddhi. Karashuddhi is a way of purifying the hands. Specifically, what we do is we take a small amount of sandalwood paste and we rub it on the hands like that before we do mudras or before we do with the talatraya, what's called talatraya. Tala means clapping and traya means 3 times. So this is done when we wake the deity, and there are other reasons to do it, but here he's doing it to sort of get rid of all of, there may be some inauspicious, different subtle entities around the place. So he's doing it in that way. Then by doing the Astra Mantra Nyasa, Astra Mantra Nyasa. Now the Astra Mantra is normally, as I said, Omastraya Pat. He gave a slightly different one here. And he's written here, the Astra Mantra Nyasa, whom the Yajamana shall do Digbandha, by which protection of all the directions happen. So now what I take from this is that the guru, first of all, he does the Buddha Shuddhi. After he does the Buddha Shuddhi, he has to do the actual mantra nyasa, karanyasa, and anganyasa of the mantra which he's going to give this disciple. Right? He has to purify himself first of all to be able to give the mantra, and then he has to meditate upon the deity of the mantra in his heart, and he has to perform the mantra nyasa for that. In Gaudiya Vaishnava terms, this would be Gopal Mantra Nyasa, the Mantra Nyasa for Gopal Mantra, and the Karanyasa and Anganyasa for Gopal Mantra. So you have to do that first before he can ritually give the mantra to the disciple. Okay, so it says here, it mentions the Digbandha. What is Digbandha? There's 2 things. There's Digbandha and Digvimokaha. So Digbandha means he has to close the directions around him. Closing the directions around you is done by showing a mudra, or encircling your head and chanting a mantra, right? And going around clockwise, right? And we do this at the beginning, after we do the nyasa, so that we're not disturbed subtly. We're not subtly or ritually disturbed by some other subtle living entities while we're performing the ceremony. So he does the nyasas he does the mantra nyasa, the karanyasa, and the anganyasa. And after he does the digbandha, he does digbandha, which closes the directions. So it's like a force field around you. So after he finishes then doing his japa or his homa or his teaching of shastra or his giving of initiation or his whatever he's doing, right? Whatever ritual he's doing, or his puja, right? So then he can do Digvimokaha, and Digvimokaha is anti-clockwise, and it opens the directions. So it's like lowering the shields, lowering the force field, right? So Digvimokaha. Now Digvimokaha, as I think I said before in one class, that Digvimokaha is a system which is normally only done by smartas. Smartas are doing the Digvimokaha. Vaishnavas, they don't bother. They do the Digbandha. Everybody does the Digbandha. They close the directions. They put the force field up, but they don't all do the Digvimokaha. Now, the smartas, when they do the Digvimokaha, they do the mantra nyasa, karanyasa, and anganyasa before they do the Digvimokaha and open the directions. Okay. So then continuing on, the Atman sacrificer shall be meditated as one with the Supreme Being. Okay, so you do that during Buddha Shuddhi. You're going to think about the qualities of the Lord, and you're going to think about how you have similar qualities to the Lord in minute quantity, obviously, right? And according to the method established in the Yoga Shastra. Okay, so that's, there's some philosophical meditation that you have to do, and purified by meditating the Chin mantra, which is not explained here, the Atma mantra explained further. Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple of mantras which are used by the guru is using a couple of mantras here to aid in his meditation. I might also say that there are mudras that go along with these mantras, right? So anyway, he shall meditate on the destruction of the karyas into the karanas in order, ending in the Paramatma. Okay, so now what he's describing here is he's describing the actual process of meditation in Buddha Shuddhi. So ending in the Paramatma. So basically, what is Buddha Shuddhi? Buddha Shuddhi, while we're chanting different mantras and thinking, we're thinking that the soul and the super soul are going to are going to come out of the body in some way through the top of the head or through the right nostril or someplace, and they're going to be held on a thousand petaled lotus somewhere above the head, and they're just going to be sitting there, both the Paramatma and the Atma, the soul and the super soul. Meanwhile, with certain mantras and bij mantras, we're going to in the case of Gaudiya Vaishnava Buddha Shuddhi, we first of all think about the sin that we've incurred in the form of a person called Papa Purusha, and we destroy that sin, right? But then in most Buddha Shuddhis, what we do is we think about the elements in the body, and we merge the elements back into each other in a reverse type of creation. There's a situation in creation where the elements come out from each other, right? From subtle to gross, right? First of all, from the subtlest elements come, and finally come the grossest elements. So what we do in Buddha Shuddhi is we reverse that, right? These two things are called Shristi and Samhara, right? Shristi and Samhara. So there's a Shristi means the order of the elements in creation, how they are created from subtle to gross. So this is why it's very important to have a good understanding of Sankhya when you do all these things. Okay, so from subtle to gross elements, how things are created in this material world. Okay, and then when destruction happens, those gross elements are merged back into the subtle elements, right? Then finally, the subtlest most element, right, or Mahat, or which is a conglomerate of all the tanmatras, what does he say here? The karyas into the karanas, right? The karanas are the causes. The karyas are the things which are caused, right? Right, like in Brahma Samhita it says Krishna is Sarva Karana Karanam. Karanam means the cause. He's the cause, Karanam, of all causes, right? So we are taking the things which are caused. What are the things which are caused? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, right? Except they're caused from ether comes air, from air comes fire, from fire comes water, from water comes earth, like that. So we think of it in the reverse order: earth, water, fire, air, ether, back into the ether into the pradana into the mahat in, ahankar and manas, and into the mahat and the mahat. So finally, when we get that conglomerate of material elements, we merge that back into the Supreme Lord, because the Supreme Lord created that. So we merge it back into him. So after it's merged back into him, right, then it has to come back out again. But when it comes back out, we want it to come back out as completely pure. So it's a rebirth. Buddha Shuddhi is rebirth, basically. It's a meditation on being born again, right? So like in some religions, they say, are you born again, right? In Christianity. So that we do this all the time, being born again. Every time we do puja, every time we do a ritual, we're doing this Buddha Shuddhi before, so that we have a completely pure body in which to worship the Lord. Okay, so anyway, he's just going through that. Ending in Paramatma. And after the body is, of course, recreated in Buddha Shuddhi, then again, the Paramatma and the Atma are again put back into the heart from outside the body. Okay, so he shall meditate on the destruction of the karyas into the karanas in order, ending in Paramatma, the Supreme Being. The inhaling of air, taking the breath, with the letter yam, shall be exhausted, right? So this, anybody who knows about Gaudiya Vaishnava Buddha Shuddhi, right? It's a very typical North Indian form of Buddha Shuddhi, and probably used in other parts of India as well. in the Sri Vaishnava, the Sri Vaishnava one is according to the Pancharatra, and it's a little different than this, okay? But it involves Panchapanishad mantras and not these specific specific Bij mantras. But I do have to say that in general purification, we use a system which is also mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, Soshana, Dahana, and Plavana. Soshana means drying. Dahana means burning. And Plavana means nectarizing or wetting, right? So there are certain Bij mantras which are used for drying. The Vayu Bij, or the air Bij, is used to dry things up, just like air dries things up. The wind dries things. So this Vayu Bij is Yam. So Yam has to be used. Yam has to be used, right? In this way, the whole body is by Ram meditating on the letter Vam and assuming the whole body is floating on an ocean of nectar. Okay. Okay, it's a little bit of a clumsy translation here because maybe the person translating this is not familiar exactly with all the rituals. So I just explaining to you that in Buddha Shuddhi, first of all, or even in Soshana Dahana Plavana of purifying any item, right? First of all, we dry the item, then we burn the item. This is all mentally, right? Ritually. We dry the item, we burn the item, and then we nectarize the item. So we use Yam, Ram, and Vam. Yam is the Vayu Bij for drying. Ram is the Agni Bij for burning. The fire Bij. Vam is the Bij for Varuna, right? Is for nectarizing, is the water Bij. Okay, so then, meditation shall be, assuming all tattvas have been concealed in the self, and having brought the soul into the Paramatma of his heart lotus. It's a strange translation. Okay. Theory of monism applies here. Soham is the experience. Okay. All right. So there's a mantra called Soham, Soham Asmi, mentioned in the Upanishads. And what it means is I am like the Supreme. I have the same qualities as the Supreme, of course, in very minute quantity, but I'm similar to the Supreme, right? Because God is Sat Chit Ananda, right? He's full of bliss, full of knowledge, right? And he's eternal. He's eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, right? The soul is also eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. The soul is also Sat Chit Ananda. So both the soul and God are both of the same quality, but not quantity. We are like little sparks and he's like a huge fire, right? That's why the spark can be covered by the smoke. The fire can never be covered. The huge fire can never be covered by the smoke. So we can be covered by avidya or ignorance. But anyway, this is just the philosophy behind, it's just general Vedanta philosophy. Okay, we are of the same quality, but not the same quantity as God. Okay, so here, so that's the meaning of the word in Vedanta, Soham. Soham means Saha Aham. Saha Aham. It literally means I am him, but it doesn't mean I am him. It means I am like him. I have the qualities of him. I have his qualities, but very, very minute. Right. And then he shall do pranayam 3 times by the Mula mantra and nyasa by the Hamsadeva mantra. So even the Hamsadeva mantra here isn't given. And we'd have to look in the text and see if there's any commentaries and find out what this Hamsadeva mantra, off the top of my head, I don't know what this is either. So, but he does pranayam. So pranayam, we know how to do pranayam. Pranayam is also mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. It'll also come in probably in the 5th Vilas. How to do pranayam usually. We can talk about it more when we get to the 5th Vilas, okay? But pranayam is very simple. It's basically just breathing in, holding, breathing out. That's called Puraka, Kumbhaka, and Rechaka. These are the 3 things. Puraka means breathing in, Kumbhaka means holding, Rechaka means exhaling. like that. There's another part also. Some people say that holding the air outside the body is also another part of pranayama. But normally we just talk about three parts: inhaling, holding, and exhaling. And there has to be some mantra meditated upon in the mind. Now, it can be done in a Vedic way, in a tantric way, or an agamic way. So normally when we do Vedic pranayama, we use the 7 Vyahritis, we use the Gayatri mantra, and we use another mantra called the Gayatri Siras, which all together are called Dirgha Gayatri or long Gayatri for doing Vedic pranayama. For doing tantric pranayama or agamic pranayama, we might use a Kam Bij, Klim Bij, or we might use the whole Gopal mantra. In terms of like, because we're discussing Hari Bhakti Vilasa, of course, Sri Vaishnavas, they do Astakshara pranayam. They do a pranayam with the Om Namo Narayana mantra, but for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, it'll be with the Gopal mantra, or with the Bij mantra, Klim, which is the first word or syllable of the Gopal mantra. Okay, so here it's specifically mentioned to do pranayam with the Mula mantra. Pranayam with the Mula mantra. So he doesn't say the Bij mantra, he says the Mula mantra. So the whole Mula mantra, the mantra which the guru is going to give to this disciple in the initiation, he has to do pranayam with that. And then he does nyasa by the Hamsadev mantra. Okay, we don't know what that is exactly, but we can find that out. Nyasa is touching the head, the face, the chest in order with the mantra, right? So we know what nyasa means. Nyasa means touching, or it means placing the syllables of the mantra on different parts of the body. Matrika nyasa shall be done first, and then saranga nyasa on the fingers. Okay, so matrika nyasa, the matrikas means mothers, right? So this is also described in Hari Bhakti Vilasa exactly the same way. Before we do any other nyasas, that we have to do this matrika nyasa. Matrika nyasa has to do with the goddess Saraswati. So the goddess Saraswati is going to empower the teacher, in this case, right? The teacher has to be empowered to chant the mantra, to give the mantra to the student in Diksha. So he has to first of all do the matrika nyasa, which means he has to take every syllable of the Sanskrit alphabet, and each syllable is an expansion of Saraswati. Saraswati is a goddess, the goddess of learning, and her expansions, she expands as all the different syllables of the alphabet. So he has to pray to Saraswati and pray to the syllables of the alphabet to be able to give an alphabetic mantra to anybody, and this has to be gone through even if you're just chanting the mantra or meditating on the mantra before. According to Hari Bhakti Vilasa and very, very orthodox people, the matrika nyasa has to come first. Otherwise, there's no point. So as well as doing the nyasa for the specific mantra, he has to also do the matrika nyasa first to get the blessings of Saraswati, whose expansions are the letters of the alphabet, the letters of the mantra. So he has to do that. So here it said matrika nyasa is first done, then the saranga nyasa. Saranga nyasa, well, there's kara nyasa and anga nyasa, which are gone through after we do the mantra nyasa for the particular mantra. Okay, no problem. By astra mantra, a stroke or clap shall be done on the palm of the hand, right? Right. So he goes almost dry apart, like that, right? And then 3 claps, right? And we clap one way, clap the other way, clap the other way. Right on left, left on right, right on left, like, you know. And then and on the same direction, snapping the thumb and forefinger together shall be done with attention. This was also mentioned before, I think, in Hari Bhakti Vilasa also, that snapping the finger in different directions is also done like that. Now, most people do it with the middle finger, right? That's the normal way to snap your finger like that. But here in the scripture, it actually mentions, most people snap the finger with the middle finger and the thumb. But here in the scripture, it's specifically said with the forefinger and the thumb. It's really hard to do. In practice, everybody does it with the middle finger because it's easier. Okay, so I'll just let you know that. Okay, then it says the Saranganyasa. Saranganyasa is gone through. And the Saranganyasa is actually listed here. Hridayaya Namaha, touching the heart or in the middle of the chest. Shirase Swaha, touching the front of the head or the top of the head. Shikaya Vasate, it can be the top of the head even, but here, usually the top of the forehead. Shikaya Vashate, touching where the Sika is, the back of the head, right? Where the tuft is. Kavachaya Hum, touching the shoulders. That can be done like this, crossing the hands in front of the chest, or it can be done with one hand, touching both shoulders. So just touching both shoulders, right? Yeah. Netra Trayaya Voshate means touching the three eyes. So that can be done with the thumb and the ring finger touching the eyes, and the middle finger, or probably the middle finger touching the forehead, or maybe the index finger, not sure. The exact fingers, we can figure that out. But anyway, this is done in two ways. Netra Trayaya Voshate or Netrabhyam Voshate. If we say Netrabhyam Voshate, it means we just do two eyes. The two eyes. If we do Netra Trayaya, then we do two eyes plus the third eye, which is in between the two eyes. So this also depends on the mantra that you're chanting and also the deity that you're worshipping. So some forms of Durga and Narasimha, for instance, for Vaishnavas are meditated upon as having three eyes. So when we're worshipping deities with three eyes, which are usually Ugra deities, which are usually angry deities. So if there are angry deities like Kali Ma or Durga or Narasimha in Vaishnava terms, there might be some form of Shiva or whatever it is. If they're meditated upon as being angry deities or Ugra deities, then usually we'll use Netra Trayaya. And some texts will stipulate Netra Trayaya, and some texts will just say Netrabhyam. Probably for Krishna, for Gopal mantra, we probably will use. See, here it's saying Netra Trayaya, but probably we'll use Netrabhyam Voshate. And then at the end, touching and clapping in order, right? Astrayapati. Clapping the hands, right? This is the Saranganyasa. Saranga means, Sad means six, Anga means limbs. So there's the heart, the head, the Sika, the shoulders, right? The eyes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and clapping in front is 6. Okay? Right, Sanganyas. Whenever Saranganyas is a must, it is Panchanga. If it's Panchangam, okay. So then if however, what it's saying here in this text is if however it's mentioned you should do Panchanganyasa, then you leave out the Netra Trayaya, leave out touching the eyes. Okay? So if a mantra is without anga, that mantra shall be repeated 6 times. Here, angahina means not having mantrodhara like Narayana Stakshara. Mantro adhara like Narayana Stakshara. The Narayana Stakshara mantra of Namo Narayanaya. Since Anganyasa is a must for all, what he's saying here is that with the Narayana Stakshara mantra, maybe you don't have to do maybe you don't have to do the Anganyasa in some instances. Yeah, and it says if the mantra is without that system of Anganyasa, then the mantra shall be repeated 6 times instead. Yeah. So do you understand the point? The point is that in Saranganyasa, we're going to be chanting certain mantras. There'll be 6 mantras to chant. If we don't have the Saranganyasa for a particular mantra, we just chant the mantra 6 times. So instead of saying we say, Klim Krishna Govindaya Gopijana Balabas. If it's Kamadev Gosh, Om Namo Narayana, Om Namo Narayana, Om Namo Narayana. We just say the mantra 6 times instead. Okay. Since Anganyasa is a must for all mantras, that shall be performed according to the respective kalpas. So kalpa sutras and kalpas. Kalpa means rituals. Okay. So pita means a platform, right? Or a sitting place or an altar, like that, pita, right? Shall be assumed in the body with on 2 shoulders and 2 thighs in clockwise, and the right shoulder, from right shoulder to right thigh. Okay, so this is a type of nyasa. This is called pita nyasa, and it's a type of nyasa that is done on the body, right? And the idea is that the mantra, the Lord in the form of the mantra, is going to be in the heart of the acharya before he gives it to the students. Okay, so whenever we install the Lord, in this case in the form of the mantra, in the heart, then we also worship around the Lord. The seat of the Lord becomes important, just like we see Lord Narayana sometimes lies on Adishesha. So if we worship Lord Narayana lying on Adishesha, we also have to worship Adishesha. So in this case, around any deity or around any mantra, in this case, right, which is representing a deity, we're going to perform the Pita Puja. Since the mantra is in our heart, we have to perform the Pita Puja on ourselves. It's a way of performing Pita Puja on yourself. Right. This will also be described when we perform worship on the deity. So here are the different parts to the Pita Puja. Dharma, Jnana, Vairagya, Aishwarya shall be assumed in the order. On the face, the left side, the navel, and the right side. Adharma, Ajnana, Avairagya, and Anaishwarya, the opposite of those, shall be assumed respectively. Okay. So Dharma, 4 are the legs of the Pita, and Adharma, 4 are the bodies of the Pita. The heart of the Pita is the lotus, and in the lotus, Surya, Chandra, Agni, the sun, the moon, and fire, mandalas are to be assumed. Okay. So we have these different. We have 3 sources of light. There are 3 sources of light, and the 3 sources of light are the sun, the moon, and fire in this world, right? So sun and moon and fire have special mandalas, right? Because there are different kalas. There are different aspects to the sun, the moon, and the light, right? We know this. So the sun has 12 kalas, Dwarasa Kalatmani. Now, anybody who's done Gaudiya Vaishnava worship where you do the installing the articles of worship, you know that when you worship the conch shell, you say some mantras like Ete Ganda Pushpe Omam Surya Mandalaya Dwarasa Kalapani Namaha, right? So for Surya Mandala, for the sun, there are Dwarasa kalas. There are 12 kalas. There are 12 sections. Well, what are the 12 sections? The 12 months of the year. Very simple, right? For the moon, there are 16. There are 16 sections. Sodasa Kalatmani. So Ete Ganda Pushpe Omam Soma Mandalaya Sodasa Kalatmani Namaha. Right? So there's Sodasa kalas for the moon. So the Sodasa kalas of the moon are what? Pratama Dutiya Tritiya Chaturthi Panchami Shashti Saptami Astami Dasami Ekadasi Dwadasi Trayodasi Chaturdasi. Right? That's 15. That's 14. Right? 14. Plus Purnima and Amavasya. 16. Yeah? Those are the 16 kalas of the moon. For fire, there are, it's not coming to me right now. Okay, I'm thinking about it. It's probably mentioned here, but if anybody can think of how many colors there are, Agni. Anyway, it was mentioned. It was mentioned before when we discussed the Kalavati initiation in Hari Bhakti Vilasa in the beginning of the second Vilas, right? It was mentioned the different colors, and each color was named, right? And we had to. I should probably write that out. I should probably write out the prayoga for that initiation ceremony given there, and then we would know. We would remember all the names, but offhand I forget the names. Anyway, okay. So, Surya Mandala, Soma Mandala, and Agni Mandala will be having their particular Kala Devatas, right? So we mentioned that before. The different Kala Devatas, the Devas of the different sections of the Surya, Soma, and Agni Mandalas. Om Sam Satvaya Namaha, right, is an illustration of the first letter for Kala Nyasa. So if Sattva is the first Kala, then we would say Om, then we would take the first letter of the word Sattva, Sa, add the Anushwara, M, right, and say Om Sam to make a Bija mantra for Sattva. Om Sam Satvaya Namaha, Sattva in the dative case, Namaha. And that's how we would do the Nyasas, right? This is an illustration of the first letter of Kala Nyasa. Okay, so what have we done here? We did the Matrika, what he did was he did the Mula Mantra Nyasa, then he did the Matrika Nyasa. My opinion is that actually what he's means to say is that you have to do the Matrika Nyasa first. But anyway, it seems like when we read it, it seemed to be that you do the Mula Mantra Nyasa first. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that you should be doing the Matrika Nyasa first, which is the way it's said in Hari Bhakti Vilas. The Matrika Nyasa first, then the Mula Mantra Nyasa. Then we've got this Pita Nyasa. Then the Kala Nyasa. The Kala Nyasa involves the Kalas of Surya, Soma, and Agni Mandalas, which we saw being described in the Kalavati system of initiation in the first part of Hari Bhakti Vilas, right? So this is just a confirmation. This is also saying this is Kalavati system. This is also saying how you do it, Kalavati system, right? Okay, so that's the Kala Nyasa, which is done. Then Nyasa of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas has to be done. So he's saying here that there's a Sattva Rasa, a Nyasa, a Raja Nyasa, a Rajas Nyasa, and a Tamas Nyasa. I really don't know about that. We'd have to look further into the text to find out exactly how to do that. It may be, if I look it up, there may be, I may have a Nyasa like this somewhere. Then it says Nyasas of Atman, Antaratman, Paramatman, and Jnanatman are to be done, and the Pita mantra shall be recited. None of this is described, okay? Thus, in the body itself, the Ishta Devata shall be meditated like in a Pita. The Ishta Devata, the Devata of the mantra, the god of the particular mantra which is going to be given to the disciple, has to be meditated upon in the body on a Pita. Mudras are to be shown. So there's certain mudras that have to be shown. And then Argya Stapana is to be done. So we're going to make Argya. So after all of this, and probably the mudras, what we're talking about is we're talking about Avahana mudras for the deity in the heart. The particular form of the Lord in the heart. Then thus in the body, okay. So a conch, after sprinkling by the water and Astra mantra, shall be put left on the Vani mandala upon its support. Okay, so the Vani mandala, Vani is the name of fire. So the Vani, the support for the conch, there's two things. There's the conch and the conch stand. The conch stand is worshipped as the embodiment of the Vani mandala, the Agni mandala, right, on which sits the conch. That's what he's saying here. It shall then be filled with sandal and flowered water gradually. So then after we do that, we fill the conch up with fragrant water, sandalwood fragrant water. Support of the conch is fire. Conch itself is the sun, and water is the nectar, represented by the moon, right? So do we understand now why do we do the conch puja with those three mandalas, the Vani or the Agni mandala, the Surya mandala, and the Soma mandala, right? Do we understand the symbolism now of the conch and the conch stand? Yeah, okay. So respectively, Agni, Surya, and Soma mandalas shall be meditated upon the support, right? The support, the conch, and the water, right? And its water, the teaching shall be, the teacher shall do japa of the Mula Mantra. Okay, so after the conch is installed and it's filled with the water, then over the water, on the water in the conch, the teacher does japa of the Mula Mantra. He infuses the water of the conch with the mantra of the Mula Mantra, worshipping the conch with the Hrin mantra, and the Hrin mantra he gives here as Soma Mandalaya, Soma Mandalaya Namaha, Soma Mandalaya Namaha, and covering the water by both hands. The Yajamana shall fill it with the deity. Fill it with the deity and do japa. So he's covering it with two hands. He's doing japa. There's a system where you cover and you do japa on the hand over the water of the conch, and you're meditating upon, by the japa of the mantra, Mula Mantra, the deity of the Mula Mantra going into the water of the conch. Okay. Then after that's finished, then he protects the conch by doing the Astra mantra, hiding the Astra mantra. There'll be a mudra to go with it, and hiding the covering by the Kavacha mantra, and there'll be a Kavacha mudra to go with it. Restoring it with the Denu mudra, right, and controlling it by Samirodhana mudra shall be done. Here, afterwards, we do Avaguntana mudra, Sanirodhana mudra, which are described in Patala 23. So if we want to know some of these mudras, we have to look to the 23rd chapter of this book, right? You would think that they would teach you this first before the 4th chapter, right? But anyway, the guru has to know all these things, so he's obviously read the whole book. So it may be that we have to look in the 23rd chapter if we want to see the different mudras. So to his right side, the Prokshini vessel has to be kept and filled with water. So he has a vessel on the right side, which is filled with water, just like we have when we do a fire sacrifice. We have on the right side, we have a vessel called the Prokshini Patra, probably with a kurcha sticking in it so that we can sprinkle things with water. Or even we can just take water from it in our hands and throw it on things. A little bit of Arghya water shall be added to the Prokshini water. Okay? So after you set up a Prokshini Patra, and probably you can do it in the same way as you do in regular Agni Mukham, right? After you fill up that Prokshini Patra, right? You should also take a little bit of the water from this conch shell where you just invoke the deity in it and put a little bit of that also in the Prokshini Patra. Yajamana shall put Padya vessel, water for washing the feet, Achamana vessel, water for washing the mouth, right? And all materials for yaga, meaning the sacrifice, to the north of the Arghya-patra. Okay? Himself being in the north, and then he sprinkles the mandala. Right. So very simple. I'm facing east. I'm facing east, my left side is north. My right side is south. Yeah. So I'm putting things on my right side, but those things are further away from me or closer to me. If they're closer to me, then those things are north of the first things. If there's first things which are further away from me, if they're a little bit closer to me, they're further north, and I'm further north than those things. Okay, so that's how it's. I mean, we could make a diagram, but I think that's pretty clear. So then he sprinkles the mandala. Okay, so exactly what mandala hasn't been described here, but he's going to sprinkle the mandala, and we don't know if he's going to use the Prokshini Patra to sprinkle the mandala or whether he's going to sprinkle the mandala from the conch shell. In the order, other vessels also shall be sprinkled by the Mula Mantra. So he's sprinkling other vessels with the Mula Mantra, chanting the Mula Mantra and sprinkling them. So maybe he's using water from the conch shell since he's sprinkling using the Mula Mantra. Then in his body, he has to worship Dharma, etc., meaning all of the deities of the Pita Nyasa, right? He has to worship those in his body also, in the order of Nyasa. So he's doing Pita Nyasa on his body. So again, Pita Nyasa was done before. I'm not sure why he's doing it again on his body, but he does it anyway. Up to Pita Mantra, flower and sandal, rites have to be done, and in the body, the supreme devata, the deity of the mantra, shall be assumed, and 5 times Pushpanjali shall be repeated. So then he offers Pushpanjali to the deity in his heart, beginning from the head, with the head, the leg, the heart, the leg, and all the parts of the body shall be worshipped with sandal, flower, and upacharas, but not Naivedya, not food. All the upacharas, but not Naivedya or food. So here when it says all the upacharas, it probably means panchupachara, 5 things. So what is panchupachara again? Gandha, Pushpa, Dhupa, Deepa, Naivedya. Leaving out Naivedya, Gandha, Pushpa, Dhupa, Deepa. So sandalwood, flowers, incense, and lamp. Okay. All other matters shall be completed according to the method preached by the Guru. Right? So that's the setup. And then it says all other matters are to be done by the Guru in regards to that. All of this can be done by water put in the Prokshini vessel. So here it's being very clear that you're not using the water that's in the conch shell, which is infused with the deity, the mantra, the Mula Mantra, but you're using water from the Prokshini vessel. But there is a little bit of that in the Prokshini vessel anyway. So, okay, good. After pouring down the existing water, once again, it shall be filled. So the Prokshini, you use the Prokshini Patra. I guess it's talking about the Prokshini Patra here, not the conch shell, right? The Prokshini Patra is then filled up again, and the mandala shall be worshipped by sandal, flower, etc. So probably the mandala is described somewhere else in Sharada Tilaka, and we know how to worship the mandala, and so it's just saying worship the mandala at this point with sandalwood and gandha and pushpa, etc. Right. Some rice shall be put into the karnika. Karnika Chetra is the very center of the mandala. So you sprinkle some rice, do put some akshata, let's say, into the middle of the mandala. A little boiled rice next. First of it should be some rice, so meaning akshata. And then it should be a little boiled rice and some darba grass for decoration, and a kurcha with akshata shall be put on it. So this is when you learn about worship of mandalas, then normally we'll put a kumbha or we'll put a kurcha on the middle of the mandala when we invoke the mandala. Before you can worship the devatas of the mandala, you have to invoke them. So then Pita Puja shall be done. Okay, beginning Adara Shakti Namaha. So normal Pita Puja, which is done before regular puja, right, of the mandala here, is done with Adara Shakti Namaha, etc. So to go through the whole explanation of Pita Puja, that's another whole section, so we won't do that now. Under the Pita, one shall worship Adara Shakti, being seated on a stone slab, like a tortoise, being illuminated like a winter moon, and having two lotuses in her hand. Okay, so you're thinking about the mandala. You've got a mandala here on a Vedika. So you've got a Vedika, maybe a meter and a half high, and it's got it's on top of it. You put them. It's a table sort of thing, and you're made of brick. And on the top, you've got a mandala. But you meditate upon a goddess being inside that, holding up the mandala. The goddess holding up the mandala is called Adara Shakti, right? And being seated on a stone slab like a tortoise. So that goddess is seated on a tortoise as her seat. And she is looking like a winter moon. She's pale colored, and she has two lotuses in her hand. So I'm not sure whether she has lotuses in both hands or two lotuses in one hand, but she has lotuses in her hand. So that's the meditation on Adara Shakti. When you do the Pita Puja, you meditate upon Adara Shakti. You say Om Adara Shakti Namaha, and you offer a flower and sandalwood paste, and to the Pitam, to the Vedika that the mandala is sitting on, thinking like that. So there's a meditation mantra there. Tortoise should be seated. This is I don't know if this is the correct translation here, but he says tortoise should be seated on her head. I think she should be seated on the tortoise. But anyway, black in color shall be worshipped. Okay, so the tortoise is black in color. Okay, and upon the tortoise, supreme power Mahavishnu to be seated. Okay, so maybe it is like that. Maybe Adara Shakti is there, then there's the tortoise, and then there's the mandala, right? And upon the tortoise, supreme power Mahavishnu to be seated on the Brahmashila. On Brahmashila. Brahmashila is a stone which goes in a foundation or under a deity, right? When we establish a deity, and the deity sits on top of the Brahmashila. Illuminating like kunda flower, bearing wheel, and carrying earth upon his head, shall be worshipped upon him. Okay, so that's another dhyana mantra for this Pita Puja worship. Vasumati, the earth, being black like a tamal tree, bearing a black lotus in her hands. Okay, so now we have another goddess of the earth, who's black and bears black lotuses in her hands, and being beautiful by the decoration of oceans upon the earth and the island of Mani Mandapa. So Mani Mandapa means a jeweled throne, a jeweled mandapa, not just like a yaga mandapa, like a gazebo, a covered area, covered throne, right, like that, made of jewels. So there's the Mani Mandapa. Inside the Mani Mandapa, we're going to worship the deity. It seems seemingly the deity of the mandala here, which should be the same deity as the deity of the Mula Mantra. In that island, right? So upon the earth, an island and a Mani Mandapa. So upon the earth, there's an island. This is all the meditation. And upon the island, there's a Mani Mandapa, a jeweled mandapa. In that island, and kalpavrikshas in the island shall be worshipped for wealth. There are kalpavrikshas, there are trees in the island around the Mani Mandapa, which are worshipped for wealth. Vedika, this is all by meditation. Vedika under all of these, which benefits the mandapa. There's a Vedika which beautifies the mandapa, Vedika. So underneath that mandapa, there's also a pitam. There's also a seat, which is called a Vedika or an altar. And then the Pita, once again, has to be worshipped by Dharma, Jnana, Vairagya, Anashwarya, like that again. They have to do the Pita Puja again for that Pita. For these are in the form of legs, right? So there's 4 legs. There's 4 legs holding up this this Pitam or this Vedika, on which is this mandapa, which is on this island, which is on the earth, right? And there are these 4 legs, which hold up this mandapa are red, black, green, and blue. And in brackets it says indigo, which is a type of blue. So, Adharma, etc., are assumed and worshipped as a bull, a lion, a Bhuta, and an elephant. It says here Bhuta, and in brackets it says Saton. I don't know what that means. I think that's a spelling mistake. Yeah. Anyway, in the corner, Agneya, I believe is southeast, right? Ambuja shall be worshipped. First Anandakanda, then Samvin Nala, right? And so some of the mantras to be used are Anandakandaya Namaha, Samvin Nandaya Namaha, etc. Right. So exactly what this is about, we have to go into more detail about it somewhere else. Then Shriva Tattvatmaka, I'd really like to see the Sanskrit to this book. Shriva Tattvatmaka, Padma, Prakriti Maya, Patras, Vikramaya Keshara, Panchas Dwar Nabijadya, and Karnika. Okay, so what we're talking about here is different parts of the mandala. There's different parts to this mandala. We have to see this mandala and we have to understand how it's probably described in another part of Sardatilaka, that all these different parts of the mandala and how they worship like that. Since I personally studied Chakrabja mandala and I don't know what this particular mandala is, so therefore I'm not exactly understanding the exact nature of this mandala and the deities on it. So I would have to look this up and to go into it in more detail. But anyway, it's a type of mandala. If we can't figure it out, then we just do a regular Sarvatobandra Mandala Puja, or if we're doing something concerning, Pancharatra, we can use a Chakrabja Mandala, for instance, from Padma Samhita. Okay, so the 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, with pranava, have to be uttered. So we have to say Om Sam Sattvaya Namaha, Ram Rajase Namaha. Om Sam Sattvaya Namaha, Om Ram Rajase Namaha, Om Tam Tamase Namaha, right? And then Atma and Antaratma, Paramatma and Jnanatma have to be worshipped according to the ritual rites. In the filaments, now this is all on the mandala. This is describing all the mandala puja. In the filaments that are to be worshipped, Padma Pita Shakti Devatas, being in Vara Mudra and Abhaya Mudra shall be worshipped. Okay, so there are Shakti Devatas, which are goddesses, right? Also on the mandala, and they have to be worshipped in the filaments. All of this, it seems to me, all of this was talking about the Karnika, the central portion of the mandala. The filaments are as you move outwards. When you do mandala puja, you start in the middle of the mandala and you move outwards. So at least that's for Chakrabja mandala and most mandalas. You start in the middle and you work outwards. Okay, and so now it's talking about the filaments. The filaments are the next part out. in just like a flower. If you think of of a mandala like a flower, the very middle of the flower, there's some very delicate little things called, which in English we call stamens, right? These are the filaments. So the very middle of that, the stamens, the filaments, right? You have to think about these, meditate upon these. Padma Pita means sitting on lotuses, Shakti Devatas. So these goddesses who are sitting on lotuses, holding in their hands Vara and Abhaya, Vara and Abhaya mudras, right? So you've got these goddesses sitting on lotuses, right, in the filaments. Now, filaments, many times the filaments represent the syllables in the mantra, okay? So when you have a mantra, when you have a mandala and you have of a particular mantra, right? Now, I'll give you an example with Chakrabja Mandala. In Chakrabja Mandala, you can have the filaments be either 12 or 8, right? So if they're 8, that means you're using the Om Namo Narayana mantra. Om Namo Narayana has 8 letters. So there's going to be eight stamens, 8 little filaments in the middle of the Chakrabja Mandala, for each one for a syllable of Om Namo Narayana. If you do it for the 12, if you do 12 syllables, you use Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I suppose you could use 6 syllables also, Om Vishnave Namaha. You could, so for instance, if you're doing Gopal mantra, you're going to use 18, right? If you're using the 18-syllable Gopal mantra. Of course, there's a 10-syllable Gopal mantra also. But anyway, that's beside the point. We are talking mostly about in Hari Bhakti Vilasa the 18-syllable mantra. So you would think that a mandala made for the worship of the 18-syllable Gopal mantra would have 18 filaments, each one for a syllable of the mantra. Okay, so here it's talking about meditating upon each one of those filaments as having a goddess sitting on a lotus showing Abhaya and Varada mudras on it, right? So this is all in meditation, that we have to think like that, and then we can worship each one of the syllables of the mantra, right? So let's see if we have a lot more to the. There seems like there's going to be quite a lot more to the Kalavati version before we get to the other. Okay, so do we want to continue on here, or do we want to have some questions? Or do we want to finish it here? Because I think we've been going for quite a long time. It's getting late.
I have no questions personally.
Right. Okay. It's a lot to take in. You know, like I said, we could study the whole book in detail, and I can get the Sanskrit out, and we can do some more research if you want to. But see, we're studying Hari Bhakti Vilasa, and this was an offshoot of our discussion of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. And so that's why we're just going through the 4th chapter of this book, but there's actually 25 chapters. And in order to understand the whole, what's in the 4th chapter, you do have to, it says here in the 4th chapter, you have to look at certain other chapters to understand everything. So, and plus it's not a very good English translation. Plus also the other thing is that I'm not looking at the Sanskrit next to it. And I didn't do a lot of preparation or something, but I can understand it because I'm familiar with other systems, you know, with the Pancharatric system, which is also Tantric system like this.
I guess for me, the only question that came up would be to maybe if we could just have a separate class on Chakrabja Mandala, so that we can understand it a little bit better.
Okay. Why do we need Chakrabja Mandala?
Is it used in Pranapratishtha?
It's used in Pranapratishtha. It's also used in Diksha.
Mm-hmm.
It can probably it's also used maybe in Utsava. Any ritual in the Padma Samhita, it's probably going to be used. Any Pancharatric ritual. But are you going to do any of those rituals?
Possibly.
Okay.
I mean, people bring up conversations like that with me sometimes, like, oh, can you do prana pratishtha, this, that, whatever. Somebody's talking about opening a temple in I forget what the name of that place is, Sin City, Las Vegas, and he was asking me if I could do prana pratishtha.
Okay. So really what you want to know is you just want to know the prayoga for doing Chakrabja Mandala of Aradhana, worship of Chakrabja, the Avahanam and the Aradhanam in a Yagashala when you're doing pratishtha, right? Okay.
Yeah. How to even draw it too. I don't know how to design it. There must be some trick because I see everybody does it so nicely.
How to draw it. Okay. That's easy. Well, it's not easy, but it's, it's explainable. It's explainable. Yeah. A lot of people don't draw it. They just get one. They just get one printed on cloth. Even Vinay Bhatta in Mysore, he has one on cloth. But the interesting thing is, different people have their different ideas of what it looks like exactly. And I've seen it mentioned in his idea is the best because he takes it right from the Samhita. Whereas other people have been learning from their parents and things, like all the other bhattas that I've talked to. They see doesn't come in an Archika family, but he's a Sanskritist who learned how to make money from, by doing pujas, right? So he learned agamas in order to be able to do the agamas, to do those things, because it's practical. So he learned, and he learned by studying the actual texts. Whereas some of these other people they're learning from their families, and it's not necessarily correct according to the actual texts. Exactly correct.
You mentioned last time that Sri Vaishnavas, when they receive Diksha initiation, it does not qualify them to do temple worship. What about, does it qualify them for being able to do Homa, Yagya, all of that?
No, they can do anything they like. You can do anything you like in the house.
Okay.
But
yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can do things like that, but you can't worship in the temple. The temple procedures are more complicated than house procedures.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do Homa, usually people who are doing Homa, people do Homa in the house. Okay, there's going to be a person. What should a Brahmin, if you're a Brahmin, even if you're not a Sri Vaishnava, if you're a Brahmin, you should be doing Upasana Homam every day, morning and evening. If you're Grihastha, and you should be doing Agnihotram, morning and evening. So there are two fires that you have to do morning and evening. Some people, in practice, what people do is they either do one or they do the other. They don't do both. I don't know anybody who's doing both, and most people aren't doing any. But those people who are either doing Upasanam in the morning and the evening. Every 2 weeks they have to do a different one called Stalipakam, and then which are the Vedic fire. The Griha Smarta Agni. Right, and in Shrauta Agni, they would do Agnihotra, and every 2 weeks they have to do another one called an Ishti. Okay, so you have the Upasanam every morning and evening. Every 2 weeks on Pratama, I think, right? Does Pratama come every 2 weeks? Yeah, after Amavasya, after Purnima, the day after is Pratama, right? So I think on Pratama, right, you have to do Stalipaka. Okay, so what it means is you're keeping the fire morning and evening, and you're keeping it in cow dung, or you're keeping it, there's a hot coal which you're keeping, and it's covered with ash, and you uncover it in the evening, and you put some more rice on it, and then you cover it up again, and then the next morning you uncover it and cover it up. But the fire gets weak after a while. If you keep a fire, it's just a hot coal. right? If after 2 weeks it gets a little weak by just putting a few pieces of rice on it morning and evening, right? It hasn't got a lot of energy in it because you didn't offer it much. Because it's a very simple thing, Opar right? Even Agnihotram is not so. Yeah, so every 2 weeks you do a larger thing and you put more fuel on the fire, and you actually put charu on there, which is cooked on the fire, and so that's called for Upasanam. Every 2 weeks, that's called Stalipakam. You do the Stalipaka every 2 weeks on the Pratama, and if you're doing Agnihotram, which is in Shrauta Agni, not Smarta Agni, then you do a thing called Ishti every 2 weeks to feed the fire and keep it going better. Okay, so that you would do. That has absolutely nothing to do with Vaishnava initiation. That's something Brahmins do. So when you say, can you do homas in the house? Yeah, of course. You're already doing. If you're a Brahmin, you're already doing homas in the house, even if you're not taking Vaishnava initiation. So do you have the qualification to do homas just by doing Vaishnava initiation? Yes, you're qualified to do, just like you're qualified to do a type of Pancharatrik puja in the house by that simple initiation. You're also qualified to do a type of homa, type of abhisheka, or whatever it is, but in the house. In the temple, you're not. There's other types. So there's the Vedic rituals, there's the house rituals, and then there's the temple rituals. There's 3 types of rituals with Sri Vaishnavas. Whereas other Vaishnavas don't make that distinction between, maybe because the rituals that they do in their temples are not as complicated as in Sri Vaishnavism. Because in Sri Vaishnavism, we're doing very complicated rituals in the temples because the temples have these original Agama Samhitas which they have to follow. Like in Sri Rangam, they have to follow Parameshwara Samhita, right? Whereas in my house in Sri Rangam, I don't follow Parameshwara Samhita. I just follow the simple book which was written by Ramanuja or by Parasara Bhatta, one of the acharyas who made a summary, a very simple way of doing puja. But in the temple, they're following Parameshwara Samhita. They're following a lot more stuff. They're doing it much more. So you need special training for that. You need special training, special initiation to certain mantras, which are not used by people in the house. That's all. Right? That doesn't mean you can't also do a fire sacrifice. You can do it, and if you're a Brahmin, you can do a Vedic one. If you're not a Brahmin, you just do the regular, agamic style fire sacrifice. Yep. Okay, so it was sort of complicated and complex today. It also said you shouldn't. We have to understand that if Gopal Bhatta quotes from this book, it means that he read the whole book and he understands the whole book, and then he quotes a little bit from it like that. We shouldn't think that we can just understand the whole book by just a little excerpt that's been quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas, or just the mention of these different types of dikshas. So it may take more than this one book to understand this book fully. So that's why, but all of these books like Hari Bhakti Vilas or the other books which are written in the other sampradayas as compilations, they all have origins in the different samhitas of the Pancharatra or in different Agama Shastras or Tantras. And to fully understand these, you have to have a background in Mantra Shastra, in Agama Shastra, and things like that. If you have a background in that, then you can more deeply understand that. Or you actually have to have a guru who has that background. Either you have to have that background, or you have to have a teacher who can tell you this is what it means, that is what it means. Because otherwise, there's a sort of difficult text to understand a lot of times. And again, it's also not written in the form of a prayoga, which it seems to be. But like when I looked at it and it said do the Mula Mantra Nyasa, then do the Mantra Nyasa. No, I would consider in a prayoga, you should probably do the Mantra Nyasa first. but it's not written like that. So, you know, we'd have to have somebody who's an expert in this particular, or at least in Mantra Shastra and Agama Shastra, explain this properly. So that's why, because I'm a little bit familiar, I can't say that I'm an expert in Agamas, but I'm a little bit familiar with this, with Tantra Shastra and Mantra Shastra. So therefore I'm able to understand some of it. And so other things I would have to do research into it, and I could probably understand it with the reference books that I have. And if I don't, you know, when I come up with something that I just really can't understand, then I wait till the next time I go to India, or I contact somebody I know in India and ask them. And at least try to ask a few people too, because you might not get the same answer also from the same person, from every person. Okay, so that was the beginning of Kriyavati Diksha according to Sharda Tilaka Tantra, which is mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas. There's another book that I just looked up today and downloaded, which is mentioned in text 186 of Hari Bhakti Vilas, second Vilas, that is Prapancha Sara. So there's a book called Prapancha Sara, which was actually written by Shankara, or compiled by Shankaracharya. And it's mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas, and it says that the first Diksha ceremony that we just discussed last time in Hari Bhakti Vilas is done in the same way as the rituals given in that Prapancha Sara. So there's a book called Prapancha Sara. There's also another book called Prapancha Sara Sara that somebody else wrote, explaining Shankara's book Prapancha Sara. So I'm downloading both of those books. But previously I had looked at Prapancha Sara Sara, and I want to look at the original Prapancha Sara now, because I saw it mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas, second Vilas, text 186, which was in between the first method of doing Diksha and the second method of doing Diksha, which is where we're at right now. So next time we can either continue with Hari Bhakti Vilas, or I think we should finish off the Sharda Tilaka first. Tomorrow we can maybe try to finish the fourth chapter of Sharda Tilaka and understand the four types of Diksha fully. And then I don't know whether they'll understand those four things fully, but we'll have an idea anyway. And then if we want to look at Prapancha Sara, then maybe next week we can look at Prapancha Sara, which is mentioned there, or we can just continue on. There's an English explanation of Prapancha Sara that I've seen in the one that I'm just downloading. So there's an introduction by a guy called Arthur Avalon. There was a guy in the Theosophical Society called Arthur Avalon way back, and he was specifically interested in Tantra Shastra and Agamas. So he wrote some books on Tantra, and he presented a lot of Sanskrit books, and he has written an English introduction to that one, which is I think 60 pages long or something like that, which explains a lot of it. So Prapancha Sara could be something that we want to look at after we look at Sharda Tilaka. Or if we don't want to get too sidetracked, we can also continue directly with Hari Bhakti Vilas. That's up to you. That's up to you. The depth that you want to go into this subject matter is up to you guys. You have to tell me. Because I love it. If I find something, I'll just go off on a tangent and I'll go as deep as possible into that thing. But for you, it may be like, why do we have to go into this in detail? You know, who knows? Who cares? You know?
I mean, I'm not initiating yet, so.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, well,
but who knows?
No. The idea is here. It's we're not studying this because we want to initiate anybody, right? We're not studying Diksha. We're just studying it because it's part of Hari Bhakti Vilas. We've all taken Diksha, so we all should understand. We should try to just understand what Diksha means, and that there are different types of Diksha, and there are different aspects to traditional and authentic, you know, Shastric Diksha. And we'll see later on in second Vilas, we'll see that Diksha can be very simple also. Diksha can be very simple also. It can be just the guru can just sit and he can just give the mantra. He can just give the mantra. You know, without doing all of this stuff. You know, he can do that. There are some traditions where the guru, you know, in the Shakti agamas, and there are Shakti agamas and Shaiva agamas, and think there are people who do the Shakti part. You know, they don't even do any ritual at all. They just touch the disciple or do nyasa on the disciple's body, or, you know, or look at the disciple and infuse them with some Shakti, and then give the mantra. That's all they do. You know, so it can be very simple also. But like I said, you know, a truly qualified person in Tantra Shastra should know all these things. Whether he practices everything or not is another thing. According to time and place and circumstance, he may just give the mantra. That person who all knows these rituals, he may just give the mantra. He may not do all these rituals according to the you know, what's happening. But this is the way it's written in the scriptures. So we should know it, and then we can decide if this part is useful, or that part is useful, or the other part is useful. You're going to find, if you're studying Hari Bhakti Vilasa, you're going to find a lot of things which you won't do every day, or you won't do at all. Mm-hmm. But everything. It's an encyclopedia. Mm-hmm. It's an encyclopedia of agamas, and you're not going to practice everything. In fact, probably even if you sat down and said, I'm going to make a prayoga of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, you would have to decide at this point, am I going to do this type of pranayam or that type of pranayam? You can't do both, or you don't need to do both. You know, if you were to do every ritual in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, you would be doubling up on a lot of things, right? Mm-hmm. So because it gives different ways of doing it. So like for instance, if I say, okay, why don't I sit down with Hari Bhakti Vilasa and I make a prayoga for Gaudiya Vaishnava Diksha according to Hari Bhakti Vilasa? I could do that. But it wouldn't be just one version. There'd be many versions, because as you can see in the second chapter, he started out with one version. Now he's going to give another version, and he's actually going to give more versions. Even with installation, in the 19th Vilasa, it says, okay, here's a method of installation. Then it says, okay, here's another method according to this book. Here's a third method. Here's a method if you've only got one person doing it. Here's a method if you're doing it for a movable deity. Here's another simple method. Here's a simple method according to Bodhayana. So there's a few methods. So if somebody says to you, oh, teach me the method of installation of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, which one? There's more than one. There's more than one. There's more than one description of how to do Diksha. And he says right in the beginning there are 4 types of dikshas, and only describes one form, but a few different ways of doing it. So there's many. It's an ocean. There's many different ways to do rituals.
Can I suggest something? Maybe what we can do is just go through Hari Bhakti Vilasa and then take notes of anything that we want to go into further, and then maybe finish out like that. That way we can.
That's fine. You're the one that asked what the 4 types of initiation was.
Yeah,
you're the one. Okay. So
I didn't mean
be careful what you wish for is what we say. Be careful what you wish for. Everything I ever wanted to know about initiation, but we're afraid to ask. That's what we're talking about here. We got, you know, we can just go on forever. There's many different ways of initiation. So
yeah. That was just my thought, though. Like maybe we can just finish doing Hari Bhakti Vilasa and then go into some things, you know, deeper, because way.
Okay, but since you asked about the 4 types of initiation, and it's not that long, the thing is, it's not actually that long. I can read this section in, 10 minutes. I can read the chapter, okay? So, but to explain it to you guys, I'm trying to, first of all, I have to understand it. I can probably understand it if I read it 10, 15 minutes, I can understand it. But to explain it to you, right, is taking me a long time. That's why it took me 2 hours to get halfway through, because I'm trying to explain to you all this stuff. For people who know about Mandala Puja, Pita Puja, Puja Shuddhi, all these things, for people know all the concepts and know several different ways of doing all those things, right? Then these things make sense and it's not a problem, right? You can just read it and understand it. But to explain it, you see, that's why it's taking so long.
Yeah.
Gorkesh, can I ask you just a quick question?
Sure. Shoot.
So what is, can you define prayoga? I don't know what it means.
Prayoga, the word prayoga. Yeah. Okay. So once again, whenever we're having a discussion like that, a lot of technical jargon comes up and Sanskrit words will be thrown around. And if we don't know what it means, we have to know. So prayoga means a procedure, a step-by-step procedure, like in a cookbook, right? In a cookbook, it says, get these ingredients, measure them in this amount. Step 1, put them all together in a pan. Step 2, turn on the heat to this degree and cook it, right? Like that. After 30 minutes, take it out of the oven. Right. So that's a prayoga. Prayoga is a step-by-step procedure of a ritual.
Okay, I had guessed that, but I wanted confirmation.
Sorry? Say again?
I had guessed the same, but I wanted confirmation.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So like, for instance, we're reading from Sharada Tilaka. Sharada Tilaka is not a prayoga. We're reading from Hari Bhakti Vilasa. It's not a prayoga. If we can read from Padma Samhita, it's not a prayoga. There's another book called Padma Prayoga, which takes the words of Padma Samhita and turns them into a step-by-step thing. So people did that with the Archana Padhati when it first came out in ISKCON. They said, okay, let's take this. This has got knowledge in it about how do we worship the deity, but they found that they couldn't use it because it was edited in such a way that it wasn't step by step, page by page. So what we usually want when we're doing a ritual, when we're learning a ritual, is we want a step by step procedure, which is a prayoga. So there are many people who are competent in ritualism. And what they do is they take the books like Hari Bhakti Vilasa or Sarada Tilaka or Padma Samhita, and they take those books and they read them and they figure out how to do those things practically step by step. And then they write that down and publish that, and that's called a prayoga. So like all the PDFs that we get from Rama Ramanujachari, right? All of different pujas and things like that. He tries to do it in a prayoga style. But the thing is, he writes a prayoga. Somebody might write a prayoga, and they might write the prayoga in a way that is meant for people who are a little bit, advanced in understanding. So, like, for instance, if I write a prayoga and I say, how do you do? If somebody comes to you and says, you're the head pujari, and somebody comes to you and says, how do I do arti? Well, I say, first of all, you do achamana. Then after you do achamana, you do this and this and this. And then the guy says to me, how do you do achamana? Right? Then I have to, if he doesn't know how to do achamana, then I have to give him that. If he knows how to do achamana, then all I have to do is say to him, do achamana. He knows how to do it. But if he doesn't know achamana, then he needs an achamana prayoga. So first of all, people, like I was mentioning here, the person the guru, before he does the initiation, he has to get up and he has to do his morning rituals. Well, what are his morning rituals? Well, he has to take bath. Well, how does he take bath? What is the ritual way to take bath? Then he does Sanyavandana. How does he do Sanyavandana? Right? So there are books, there are prayogas for all these things. There's a prayoga for everything. There's a prayoga for passing stool. Right? I had a student in Australia, right? And I told him the mantra that you have to say before you pass stool. And he put it up, he printed it out and he put it on the bathroom wall so that he would remember. because he couldn't remember the mantra, so he wanted to do it. So he so people do that. They print things out and they put them up around the place. You have a little cheat sheet when you go in the deity room. You have a little cheat sheet that tells you how to do Achimana, and you put it down and you do Achimana. And if we're acting as priests for other people, we have these yajamanas who we're doing a wedding for, or we're doing a shraddha for, or we're doing a sacrifice for. And these people want to do the puja, but they don't know how to do the puja. We know how to do it, and they don't know how to do it. So we're trying to, so either we do it for them if they're totally hopeless, or if they're not hopeless, we can say, you can do it, you offer the incense, and I'm going to chant the mantra, or please repeat after me. Repeat after me, and you repeat it slowly for them, and they say it word for word, or the sankalpa, right, the vow, and that's the way you do the ritual. So there's so that's there's different ways of doing rituals. Yeah, you can lead people through it even if they don't know how to do it. Right? So you say, take the spoon, put the water in your hand, sip it, say this, and then sip it. Yeah. Right. So that's the way.